Hello, writers. I'm Lee Jessup, career coach for emerging and professional screenwriters, coming at you with another edition of Submit Your Script, that list of competitions, labs, and fellowships that I'm a fan of, that I've grown very fond of over the many years of working with writers, and that I highly recommend that you consider submitting your work to, especially with all the changes that have happened in the screenwriting space with Screencraft, We Screenplay, tracking board Launchpad going away, with the changes with the Nicholl Fellowship. I think it's incredibly important to keep our eyes on the opportunities that are out there and to focus on those, putting the best work that we can out there in the hope of finding exposure and creating opportunities for yourself and your script. All right, let's go down the list. Some of these will be familiar because they've had deadlines for some time, and these are some final deadlines we're heading into. A few others will be new. So here we go. First up is the Austin Film Festival Screenwriting Competition, which accepts both features and TV pilots. They have their final deadline on May 27th. I'm a big fan of Austin. The industry respects it a great deal, and really you'll find that a lot of what I look at are those competitions, labs, and fellowships that will resonate with the industry. Something that I do like a lot about Austin that is also true for Final Draft that we'll be talking about in just a little bit is that they do have categories for feature scripts, as well as TV that's broken down by comedy and drama. I just find that with these bigger competitions, it's helpful to have those categories. Page that was recommended previously and is now closed also has categories. So for those bigger competitions, I think the categories are incredibly helpful. They're helpful for reps who may be considering scripts and looking in specific categories. And they're helpful for, a drama writer that doesn't have to go up against a horror film, that doesn't have to go up against a comedy pilot. So I do find that advantageous. Links are below. Next up, we have a couple of final deadlines, my God, English, from Script Pipeline coming our way. So both their TV contest and their screenwriting competition are going to be closing on May 30th. I'm a huge fan of Script Pipelines, as is John Zauzierne, whom I interviewed for the pilot episode of my manager files that I just rolled out earlier this week. He had found a number of writers through the Script Pipeline competitions, and I'm a big fan of what they do for their writers and the reputation that they have in the industry. Cinestory, that is one of the smaller fellowships here, has its feature fellowship and retreat coming up with a deadline on May 30th. That is, I believe, their final deadline. I'm a huge fan of their retreats that introduce you to more people in the industry. Once again, what we always look for is access. So do look out for that one if you are in the feature space and their retreat is something that you think you'd be able to participate in. After that, we have one of the big TV fellowships that just opened, the Disney Entertainment Television Writing Program. This is open to TV writers and requires 2 pilots, usually TV space or comedy space or drama space, to submit to the fellowship, along with some other fellowship materials, probably fellowship essay, do the drill down if you're really looking to see what are the other materials that they need. I promise you they're there. They are going to be open through June 2nd. Then we have some other deadlines for Script Pipeline competitions that are not their premier TV and feature writing programs. One is the First Look project that, for the record, Elad Ziv, who wrote Court 17, was discovered through their First Look project when he won it. They also have their pitch competition coming up, both of those with deadlines on June 20th. Next up, we have Final Draft Big Break competition, one of my big favorites. I've been working with them for a very long time, and I'm a huge fan of what they do for their winners when those grand prize winners are announced. They do a huge winners tour, introduce the writers to a lot of producers, managers, writers. Their regular deadline is coming up on May 19th. Final deadline is June 30th, open to both pilots and screenplays. Then we have another new entry, and the last new entry for this particular video for May, early June, is the ISA FastTrack Fellowship that is open to both features and TV pilot. That has a deadline of June 19th. So right at the same deadline as the Final Draft Big Break competition. I'm a fan of ISA, what they do, how they work, and how hard they work for their writers. So definitely look to those. Quick note about the blacklist. Nicholl, situation, if you watched my previous video talking about what we are finding, the information that's becoming available, is that the kind of broad pathway right now to the Nicholl is through the Blacklist website. Before I say anything else, I think it's really important to state, I know there's a lot of feelings about a lot of things. I'm a fan of the Blacklist website and the list, and I think that the writing space is better for it. The emerging writing space has definitely benefited from the Blacklist website and the hard work that Franklin Leonard and his team have done over the years. I've been asked about whether or not I'm recommending to my writers that they submit to the Nicholl through the Blacklist. I think everybody has to make a decision about what's right for them. What we do know is that there is a cap of 2,500 submissions for the Blacklist that has to be met on or before June 15th. So June 15th is the final deadline, with the ultimate deadline coming when that cap of 2,500 is reached. But the thing to remember here is that of those 2,500, only 25 scripts are going to be recommended from there to the Nicholl. Entirely up to you to decide whether or not you want to opt in for that. And if you have thoughts about that, certainly feel free to share with me in the comments. I think it's a very individual decision about whether or not that's right for you. The Nicholl does carry a lot of emotional weight. I know for a lot of writers for many, many years, the Nicholl was kind of one of the goals that you set up for yourself before making it big. And for the record, a writer of mine, when he sold a big script many years ago, not that many years ago, but some years ago, in a big spec sale, the first thing that he told me after the spec sale was, Lee, I didn't even make it to the quarters in the Nicholl. And that was after making millions of dollars, or over $1 million on a spec sale. So I understand that the Nicholl carries a lot of weight, and I think that you have to look at the current funneling system going in through the Blacklist and consider, if knowing that only 1% is going to move forward, whether you want to throw your hat in that ring. I support you whatever you do. Just putting that out there. Keep watching next month for another Submit Your Script, especially in a time like this, with Coverfly announcing that it's shuttering, with We Screenplay tracking board competitions, Screencraft going away. I think it's really important to continue to identify those opportunities that are worth of your money, time, energy, and heart. And I stand by all of those that we just talked about. So keep watching. Of course, subscribe for more. Apologies for the length. I always seem to go longer than I want to, but hopefully the information was useful. Bye.